welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be talking about 10 just iconic beauty products from the past that I've never tried. I thought this video would be fun. I've had it on my list to film for quite some time, and then some recent products came out that just really pushed me over the edge to do this video sooner rather than later. So if that sounds good to you, if this sounds like a fun video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around. But with all that, let's just get started. All right. I think we're finally at the point where I don't have to give the disclaimer about the background. I'm traveling, it's gonna change a lot, bear with me, and we're just gonna jump into these products. So most of these products, like I said, I have 10 here, are just really, they're older, just iconic, popular products. Like, you did not like makeup if you didn't have these products. That's how all the peak YouTubers made it seem like back in the day. And I never picked them up. There's different reasons for each of them, but we're gonna go over all of that. So the product that actually pushed me to do this sooner rather than later, because like I said, I've had this video idea in my notes app for quite some time, and I kind of just added products as I remembered them. The first product that I want to talk about is the Too Faced Tin Palettes. I know you're a little bit surprised. I think you can probably guess which one I was referring to, but this was actually the one that made me think of this video and doing it sooner, because I've never tried any of the Too Faced Tin Palettes. The very first one that I remember coming out that was really, really popular was the Peach Perfect palette. And for some reason, I just, at that time, I didn't love it as much as everyone else seemed to love it. I wasn't intrigued by the fact that it smelled like peaches. I've never really loved super warm tones, even back then when like warm tones was all the craze. So I just never ended up picking that one up. And then in the future, like fast forward, I never picked up the chocolate bar palette, the gingerbread spice, the pumpkin pie, any of the ones in the tins. I've never tried. I always hear how everyone says that Too Faced's tin palettes are better quality than some of the other ones, and I have tried Too Faced palettes, I will say that. I tried the natural nudes, I tried the like teddy bear, which I ended up decluttering. I didn't like that palette. So it's not to say I've never tried a Too Faced palette, I've just never tried the ones in the tins. And in my recent Will I Buy It, that I'll link up above, I talked about how the Too Faced Appley in Love palette is actually the first palette with the color story that I'm gravitating to the most. I'm a teeny tiny bit getting more interested in warm tones. It has to be the right type of warm tone, like a very muted, desaturated warm tone. I don't want like a very orangey, like just primary warm tones, if that makes sense. There's still a red in that palette, but it's only like a pop of red so I can go around it. But I think that that might actually be my first Too Faced tin palette, which is kind of exciting for me. Like I feel finally like I'm gonna turn a page like in my book and like experience something just iconic that everyone's talking about. So that's gonna be my first palette, I think. I am gonna wait for it to go on sale. I'm not gonna purchase it right away. I have no urge or desire to do that. I know it'll go on sale, so that's when I'll pick it up. Now the second one I want to talk about that's probably also, it's making its rounds around YouTube right now, is Urban Decay brought back the original Naked palette. I've also never tried or purchased that palette. Now the only Naked palette, like out of all of them that I've used, is the Naked 3, which, if you know anything about me, I mean, it's not a surprise. It's kind of more of that muted rosy tones, a little bit cooler. So that's why I purchased that one. And to be honest, I didn't use that palette as much as I was thinking I would have. I really purchased it because everyone was talking about how great the Naked palettes were at the time. And that was the only one that really, you know, made me want to purchase. At the time, I mean, we are talking about older products, so keep in mind I was a lot younger back then. I was working at least 3 jobs. So like I didn't have a lot of disposable income. I really had to pick and choose the products I was purchasing a lot more than maybe I need to now. So that's the reason why some of these I didn't pick up, because really they just didn't interest me, or I couldn't afford them. So the Naked palette, I just didn't love enough to want it. I'm not sure why. The Naked 3, like I said, I purchased that one and I really didn't use it. I ended up decluttering it. I did purchase the Naked Honey, but I never used the Naked Honey, and I ended up getting rid of that palette as well. So I don't think that I will be picking up the new Naked, the re-release of the Urban Decay Original Naked. I still just don't feel the need to want it. Part of me wants to just to try it for like nostalgic reasons, but part of me is just kind of still over it. I have enough neutral palettes in my collection to not really have that one make a difference. If this was released like 3 years ago, where I was in my peak of just like a give me everything, like really at the top of my overconsumption, really at the top of like my impulse shopping, I probably would have purchased it. But now that like I am kind of coming to terms with how long it takes to use makeup and try to be a teeny tiny bit more mindful on what I'm bringing into my collection, like I just don't need it. So those are two popular, really popular items that I just never tried. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is one that I still see people talking about on YouTube. I mean, most of these I still see people talking about on YouTube, but the Mary Luminizer is also a product that I never tried. And this one is kind of interesting because everyone talks about how this was their first highlighter. I don't remember seeing this highlight on YouTube. I mean, I've been watching beauty YouTube for quite some time now, and most of the time I see this highlighter being referenced, it's that it was their first highlighter, and do you remember when everyone had that highlighter? I don't remember when everyone had that highlighter, so I don't know if I was just watching different creators back then who weren't really utilizing it. I'm not too sure, but this is one that like now I see way more than when it actually launched. I see people who are trying to pan that highlight, use it up all the way, talk about like their fondness for that highlight, and I just don't even remember when it launched. So that's one that I completely just like, it flew over my head. I have no recollection of when that highlight even came out. So completely missed the boat. I think you can still purchase that highlight if I'm not mistaken, but definitely don't need another highlight in my collection. And at this point, like, again, no need or want to purchase that. My next thing on my list, let's circle back to eye products, is the P. Louise eyeshadow base. Now, I remember when eyeshadow primer kind of became, primer in general, kind of had a time where like, if you weren't using primer, you didn't know how to use your makeup, like primer was an essential step that we weren't using, and unless you started using primer, your makeup just wasn't going to be good. That was like what I felt everyone was really pushing. And eyeshadow primer, the very first one that people were talking about was the Urban Decay Primer Potion, which probably makes sense because I believe with the original Naked palette, you got an Urban Decay Primer Potion with that palette. So that's probably how like the circumstances, just, you know, the butterfly effect of that. I did try the Urban Decay Primer Potion. I remember that. I don't remember loving it. I've never really gotten into eyeshadow primer other than just like a concealer. I believe like I have eyeshadow primers in my collection. It just takes a little bit of motivation for me to actually remember to use them, because most of the time I'll just use concealer or something like that. But the P. Louise eyeshadow makeup bases, when those came out, I feel like they did even better than the Urban Decay Primer Potions. I mean, now I think P. Louise just has an entire range of every single color base that you could think of, but people were really into that. You got more product, I think, than the Urban Decay Primer Potion, and it was really one of the first primers that I really saw like people seeing that product go viral. People used the Urban Decay Primer Potion, but it had nowhere near just the hold on the makeup community like the P. Louise eyeshadow base. So that's another one I never purchased. I think it was kind of difficult back then to even get. So that's part of the reason why I think I just never picked it up, or I probably would have, because it's one of those like smaller products. I don't remember how much it was, but I'm assuming it was less than a palette at the time. So I probably would have purchased it, but for some reason, maybe it was a little bit difficult to get, so I just never did. And I also, for a very long time, wasn't into eyeshadow as much as I am now, for sure, because I've worn glasses for most of my life. I don't have the best vision, so I kind of just brushed off that I'll never be good at eyeshadow. There's no point in even trying. Whereas, I mean, my mindset has shifted. That's definitely just like another tangent. But at the time, I think that I just wasn't invested in learning eyeshadow specifically or trying to do intricate looks. So primer wasn't something I wanted to have because I just thought like there's no way it's gonna make me better at eyeshadow, quite honestly. Now, what do I want to talk about next? Let's stick with palettes, right? That's what I said I'm gonna do. So I have a couple more palettes left, and then there's some other products. So Morphe palettes. Now, I've tried Morphe palettes. I remember the very first Morphe palette that I purchased was the Morphe and Kathleen Lights collab. And again, that was like another product where I really only bought it for the creator. I didn't use it that much, but I'm specifically talking about Morphe's big palettes. I mean, the ones that they came out with in the very beginning, before they had stores, when they were still private labeled, where it was just like 50 shades of brown or 50 shades of pink, the 35-0, or I have no idea what those numbers correlated to. It actually quite confused me. I think they were 35 shades, and then the letter corresponded to the type of palette, but I would always get confused on it. And I think I just didn't purchase from them also because it was an online only brand at the time. And that's the main reason why. They were also very big palettes. So I've always never really enjoyed very big palettes. I never purchased them. I don't know why, because they were definitely like on the, they were not that expensive, right? That's why a lot of people were purchasing from them. But I just never picked them up. I only picked up the Kathleen Lights. I did also pick up the Jaclyn Hill palette the first round. I never really used that palette either. But Morphe, I was just more interested. I think if I wanted to purchase from Morphe, I wanted to purchase and put my money towards brushes versus products, because I probably had enough products, but I didn't have enough brushes back then. And they were pretty inexpensive brushes. I mean, at the time they were like, what, $5 or $6 for a brush. So I think that's kind of what happened, is just my wish list from Morphe was brushes and then palettes, and I never moved down the ranks. This is definitely not a product I would pick up. I don't even know if Morphe still sells those kinds of palettes, any of the big ones. They might. I really don't purchase from Morphe now. It's definitely just not something I'm even interested in looking into, to be quite honest. But there was a time when everyone also had those palettes. I think it was like an important part of just makeup because it helped people kind of explore their creativity in a way that was inexpensive with like a lot of colors. So I do kind of feel like I missed an era in that sense. Not that you can't do that with other palettes, but I feel like that's what got a lot of people into doing more intricate eye looks. And I do kind of feel like a twinge of just like missing out on that part. But I'm glad I didn't pick them up. I don't think they were like super great quality anyways. It's more that I missed like being part of the group, I guess. And then the last palettes that I have to talk about is just as a whole, the Melt palettes. Now this is kind of one with a caveat as well, because I have purchased from Melt one of their stacks that were really popular back then. I ended up decluttering that stack as well, but their newer palettes that they came out with at the time, I mean, they're still coming out with this format, but the Gemini palette, the Smoke palette, the 27 palette, I never purchased any of those. They were just very grungy green heavy, and they were very expensive. Again, online only, so I couldn't pick them up or see them in store. I was definitely at the time more of an in-store shopper. I wanted to like see things in person to make sure that that was what I wanted. I took less risks of ordering things online. Everyone would talk about the Melt palettes though. Melt's definitely, in my opinion, gone downhill. And there's only one palette that I feel like I missed out on. It's the She's and Parties palettes. That's a palette I kind of want. That's the only color story that's interested me. But I believe they discontinued that palette. So I missed out, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I won't lose sleep over it. But that's something like, again, like the Morphe, I kind of just feel like I missed a little puzzle piece of beauty YouTube, although I didn't need those. And I even know sitting here now, like I wouldn't have used those palettes had I purchased them. So I'm glad I didn't, but I also wish I just had that piece of makeup history with me. The rest of the products that I have to talk about are just complexion products. I'm gonna talk about two things that are kind of more popular now. They're not part of makeup history, and then we'll circle back and just have some more nostalgic times. So the first one that I want to talk about is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss. And then I put that on my list because that's pretty popular now, and Maybelline's like doing the lifter, not the lifter, but the same component, like blush they're doing, like they're really expanding on that line. But when I thought about it, I don't think that I've tried any Maybelline lip products, at least not off the top of my head, and definitely in my collection. I checked my spreadsheet. I don't have any Maybelline lip products in my collection now, so I don't think I've tried any Maybelline lipsticks, which I know the lipstick formula was really popular. There was like a Beyond Beige or a very popular shade of the lipstick that everyone had. The matte lipsticks were really popular. I'll pop up a photo of that because I don't remember the name of it. And then the lifter glosses. I can't tell you why I haven't purchased any Maybelline lipsticks other than just like maybe I'm a little bit bougie and I tend to purchase like higher end lipsticks for some unknown reason when I don't wear a lot of lipstick to begin with. But I think maybe it's also that as far as Maybelline goes, because I love Maybelline as a brand, I just gravitated more towards their foundations, the Maybelline Fit Me, the matte and poreless. I'm on my second bottle of that. The stick foundation I'm almost finished with. I did a whole video talking about every single Maybelline foundation. I'll link that video up above, and just like pros and cons, who I think it's for, etc. Not necessarily a ranking. So check out that video if you want to hear all my thoughts on like, I think 14 Maybelline foundations. It took me like 6 months to do that video. Anyways, I think that I just liked the complexion products more. I definitely had a blush from them. I've definitely had eyeshadows from them, mascaras, etc. Everything except for lipstick. So that's a popular product. I might just pick one of those up because they're pretty inexpensive. Like I can probably get that lipstick for like $6. I have to find out what the shade was for sure. I know it's a nude, and see if they still have it, because that might be one that I would pick up in the future. The rest of these don't really interest me. I mean, the Too Faced palette I already talked about, but that's another one where like I think I might pick up. And then the second popular product that's popular like right now, like the Maybelline Lifter Gloss, are bronzing drops. This has become like increasingly more popular, and this has been popular for, I mean, it came out with the original Drunk Elephant bronzy drops, and then it's just increased in popularity from there. So I'm kind of considering it old, kind of considering it new, because now we're just getting every brand coming out with bronzing drops. I purchased the Drunk Elephant de-bronzy drop thing and never used it. Not one time. I was kind of scared to use it. I didn't really understand how to use it. So I ended up decluttering it because it sat in my collection for like over a year, and I was in just like one of my decluttering phases, and I was like, this needs to go. I'm tired of looking at it. I'm tired of feeling guilty for not using it. So I just got rid of it. And since then, I've just decided like bronzing drops aren't for me. I'm not really a liquid complexion person. I don't like liquid highlight, liquid blush. I much prefer a cream or something just a little bit you know, more solid. So I don't really plan on purchasing liquids in the future, and I definitely won't be buying bronzing drops. I do understand why people use them more now than I did in the past. Like, I see their purpose now, but I still think that it's not a category I'll purchase from. Well, now I'm like really thinking about it. Maybe I would, maybe, just maybe, only because like if it was the e.l.f. one or something, like something where I wouldn't be upset if I wasted $8, but I wouldn't be purchasing a more expensive one. And then after that, I just have two more things to talk about, just re-go down memory lane a little bit, and I want to talk about the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I never tried the original Estee Lauder Double Wear. I do have it on my list to purchase, only because I've tried a lot of other sub double wears. I've tried the Double Wear Nude, the Double Wear Sheer. There's probably more Double Wear, the Double Wear Concealer. I mean, Estee Lauder's gone in a million different branches with the Double Wear line, but I've never tried the original Double Wear, and that's one that I definitely want to give a chance. At the time when everyone was talking about this foundation and wearing it, I was still a little bit like reserved with my makeup. I wasn't really ready to like do a full face, like not a full face, because I did a full face, but like heavier coverage, full coverage. I was still kind of like dipping my toes. So that's the reason I never purchased it. It was so full coverage. And I remember specifically is I looked at the Double Wear online and saw that they had it in Macy's. I went to a Macy's and I saw that they had the Estee Lauder Double Wear and they had the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude. And that is why I ended up picking up the Nude foundation, which I think at the time was the smartest choice for me. I really, really loved that foundation and went on to purchase other Double Wear products like the sheer, like the concealer, because I liked that so much and it just fit my aesthetic more. This is one where for me it's just worth it to try, getting that memory of trying the Double Wear, because I love foundation so much now, because I do a lot of foundation reviews. It's just one of those iconic products I think that I just need to eventually get my hands on and try. I do see Double Wear go like on Ulta's 21 Days of Beauty. They'll do the Double Wear foundation like half off. So I'll probably wait for one of those sales and then pick it up just to kind of revisit the past. And my very last product I want to talk about is the MAC highlighters. So MAC was a super popular brand. If you weren't part of watching beauty YouTube back in like, 2014, 2016, I mean, MAC was the brand that you purchased from. It was the luxury brand, I would say. Like, yes, there was luxury. There's still Dior makeup, Chanel makeup, etc., but it was MAC. And I just never purchased the highlighters. So Soft and Gentle, Double Gleam. This is also similar to the Mary Luminizer because I just never even really heard about those products. For me, if I was saving up money to buy things from MAC, I was purchasing single eyeshadows. I remember specifically the very first MAC eyeshadow I purchased was Blackberry, and then I purchased Satin Taupe, and after that I purchased a MAC neutral palette, and that's where my love for MAC Wedge came from, because that's the only eyeshadow I've ever finished and then repurchased to then go on to hit pan in that eyeshadow. So I was really just focused on buying eyeshadows from them. That was like the more popular thing, I think, or brushes. Like some of my brushes that I still have now 15 years later are MAC brushes. I have this one next to me and like the writing is so worn off, but I can't get rid of it. It is a great brush and it really stands the test of time 15 years later. So I find that the MAC brushes were a good investment back then. I think that it's a natural hair brush and now that they're synthetic, so that's also one of the reasons I can't get rid of it, because I feel like they don't make those kinds of brushes with MAC. But yeah, the highlighters, I'd love to know if you still have MAC highlighters. I have considered purchasing them before, and I think I've only considered it seeing it on the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. I've seen them go on sale and I'm like, oh, I should get one. And then I just never end up actually doing it. So if you have a MAC highlighter, I would love to know, like, do you still use it now? That's what I would want to know. Like, does it stand the test of time? Because maybe I would pick one up if I was to pick anything up from MAC. I really don't purchase from MAC anymore, quite honestly. I don't think a lot of people do. They're definitely not as popular as they used to be. If I was to purchase anything, like right now, I really love their Glow Play blushes, and they came out with new shades or reformulated, something like that. So I would maybe pick up one of those blushes, but I don't think their highlights still, you know, they still have those highlights, and it's not something that I'm really super interested in, but maybe on a sale, I would be tempted. Anyways, those are my 10 popular products that I've never tried. I would love to hear down below just things that maybe were iconic, went viral, that you've never tried, and do you wish you tried them? Do you plan on trying them? Let me know all your thoughts. It's just kind of fun sometimes to like look back in time over makeup history, take a trip down memory lane. It might also just be fun to do iconic products that I have tried that maybe I should pull back out. I don't know, that's like an idea I could play with. Let me know if you'd be interested in that video. Anyways, this is where I'm gonna leave you all though. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.